Hello, I'm Ken Hom, and I want to cook something in the wok for my vegetarian friends that is totally vegan but delicious. What I'm going to use is tofu. Usually most people think about tofu bean curd as very, very boring. And that's when the wok can transform something that looks boring into something wonderful. In Chinese, we call this the meatless meat. And we transform it by its texture. I'm slicing this with my cleaver. And remember, when you get your tofu, make sure it's firm, not the soft one, which is different. It tastes different, it's cooked differently. And we want to cut this into small cubes. And remember, when you get your tofu, to drain it and let it rest on some kitchen paper. Okay. Now, we come to our wok. Make sure your wok gets really hot before you start cooking. I'm just going to add something which people ask me about, ginger. You know, ginger is really wonderful. What do you do, for instance, if you have ginger and you peel it? You know what I advise? Don't throw away the peels. You wash your ginger, you peel it, and you save the peels in a plastic bag and put it in your freezer. And it makes a wonderful tea when it's cold outside with a bit of honey. And it's absolutely amazing. And again, you don't waste, which is really important these days. Let's not waste anything. As a friend of mine has a t-shirt that says, "Save, we love our planet, so let's save it." And if we don't waste anything, then it will be fine. Okay, my wok is hot, as you can see. How do you know it's hot? You see it's smoking. You add a little bit of oil. And this is where the cleaver is very nice. You can scoop things up with the cleaver and throw it in the hot wok. And that sizzle noise tells you that the wok is hot enough. The beautiful thing about cooking in a wok is how it transforms something like tofu into another level of food entirely. It will give a nice texture inside. The outside will be brown and crusty. And the great thing about this is you can do it ahead of time. I'm just looking at what would be very nice to have a bit of asparagus for some greenery. And again, when you have asparagus like this, when you come to the very end, this is a harder part of the asparagus and fibrous. Save it, which I do. I put it in the freezer, and I put all the scraps of food in the freezer, and then I make my what I call my surprise soup, which is not in the wok. I cook everything in a broth, and I pureed it, add a little bit of cream and butter, and people say, "Wow, what a wonderful soup." Now, this is nice and brown, as you can see. Now, what I want to do is I want to just drain this. And again, not to waste. I have my strainer, which is so useful. And you see, instead of wasting this oil, I'm using it without adding more oil. And you know, this kind of cooking is also economical. And what I mean by that is nothing is wasted, and we're saving money at the same time. And I think In these times, I think anybody wants to save money. As long as you have some oil, that's fine. You don't need a lot of oil. And it's funny, sometimes I look at, when I do stir fry, I monitor how much I'm using. And stir frying is so economical because actually the amount of oil and things you use are so small compared to other type of cooking. And these tools are very good for non-stick woks because you don't want to use metal on it. You want to use wooden. And all these sort of wooden bamboo tools are also very sustainable. And what I love about the wok is that when I do public demonstrations, I love it when people come to me and say, Ken, I've had your wok for over 30 years and I'm still using it. And that's how solid a good wok should be. And that always brings a smile to my face. Okay, I'm just going to drain the rest of this and then finish the rest of my tofu. All right, here we are. And I only have a small bit, so I'm not going to add more oil. And remember what I said before, you can do this even hours ahead. And in fact, I've cheated sometimes. I've done it the day before, and it still works fine. Sometimes, especially if you know you're in a hurry, or you don't have much time the next day, it's nice to know that there are things that you can prepare ahead of time. So in a wok, usually you don't say, here's something I made earlier, but here's something I fried earlier, you could say. Okay, at this point, this is browning away very, very nicely. And for my vegetarian friends, I'm going to show how easy and flavorful this can be. Drain that out. There's a very small amount of oil. I will add the ginger. And again, it's very hot. And sometimes it's very nice to just stir fry that around so that it flavors the wok. And carrots are good, healthy, and in fact, this is a good way to get people who don't like veggies to eat veggies. Now remember, obviously if I'm stir frying this, carrots will burn. So what do? We add some stock or water to this. What does the water do? It allows the carrots to actually steam. That's when you put the cover over the wok. Okay, we have our lovely asparagus. Carrots need to go in first. Why? Because they're the hardest. Hardest vegetables need to go in first. Asparagus is hard, but not as hard as carrots. And finally at the end, people love, this is Chinese cabbage, which is absolutely delicious and easy to make and good for you. Exactly, good. Talking about good health, I've been reading about how all these vegetables not only are good for your health, but apparently they help you survive or not avert entirely dementia and sort of Alzheimer. Apparently that helps. So we all want that. You see how it's steaming away? Now, I get the question, how do you know when it's cooked enough? If you're not sure, you take a sharp knife and you poke it into the carrots, if it goes in very easily, you know it's cooked enough. So I show you. If it goes in without any, like that, you see how quickly the wok cooks even the carrots? At this point, I could tell it's nicely cooked. So I'm going to add my lovely asparagus and return my tofu, which is drained. And you know, I love the strainer because it's so easy to use and it's so useful. And remember, all these tools you can use for non-Asian cooking. In other words, it's fantastic. I use this for pasta. I use my wok to stir fry leftover pasta. My Italian friends are very envious. And remember, the cabbage you add only at the very last moment. And remember, the tofu's already been pan-fried and cooked. So at this point, I will add the cabbage. And these tools are quite helpful because we toss everything. And because the wok is so hot, as you can see, it just cooks everything very, very quickly. And what I actually love about showing you how to make tasty things in a wok is that, as you can see, I actually have prepared everything in real time. Nothing was pre-chopped. I chopped it for you using my trusty cleaver. And you know, when you have a cleaver, you must keep it very, very sharp. And I use my little handy device, AnySharp. I put it down like that and I do it 3 times and it keeps it super, super sharp. And when the cabbage are cooked, this is when I will add my sauce. I'm going to do something for you that's perfect for my vegetarian friends. This is a mushroom vegetarian stir-fry sauce, which is absolutely delicious. Even if you're not a vegetarian, you would love it. I tend to add globs of it simply because it can turn any vegetable dish into something savory. And then, because I notice my vegetarian friends love spicy, so what I add is one of my favorite chili bean sauce. This is a product that's suitable for vegetarians. It's made from soya beans and it has chilies in it, which is nice. So I add a nice spoonful of it inside. I want to toss that. Make sure you toss all the sauces, everything, really carefully. And the bean curd, the tofu will absorb all those flavors. Even though this is a meatless dish, I think meat eaters will love it. Now, what I do, which is very important, is it's important to taste. That's really delicious. I'm going to add just a little bit more sauce. And this is how you should cook. Taste it, and if it needs more sauce, just add a little more. Here we are. Our wonderful tofu, slightly spicy. That is a joy, whether you're vegetarian or not, because it's good for your spirit and it's really tasty. To your good health.